hope you are enjoying some time to paint this week. Today I would love to show you how to paint a bird, and we're going to have fun getting nice and loose and adding some texture right there on the bottom. I'll show you some cool techniques for that. And we're going to specifically paint a Great Egret, which is from the state of Florida, in the southern part of Florida. They're very common and they are known for being white and they have black legs. And I thought that would be a beautiful bird to paint today and show you how to paint it. So notice that I'm painting on paper. This is because a lot of you have told me that it's difficult to find canvases right now. So let's start with our colors. I'm going to use silver, a white, a black, a yellow, my blue, a pink, and a red. Now you can make your pink with your white and your red if you'd like to. That blue is a nice brilliant blue, and the yellow is cadmium yellow. Now if you have a gesso, grab that too. All the supplies that you need are in the description below. When you're painting on paper, it's important that you have a heavy paper to paint on. I recommend using 140 pounds or heavier. It'll be on your product, the weight of it. 140 pounds, you will have some buckling. That's okay. You can always iron it out if you need to. But I like having a heavier paper, but that just means you're gonna have to pay more for the paper. So 140 pounds will work, and that's what I have right here. And I'm using painter's tape to tape down my paper. This is going to keep my paper in place, and it's also going to put a white edge around my painting. Now, what I need to make sure of is that I'm putting the tape down straight, so I'm going to have straight lines across my painting on the edge. And also I want to make sure that I put equal distance of the white edge around my painting, otherwise it's going to look really wonky. So that's just what I try to focus on, and then once you have that done, you're ready for the next step. The next thing that I like to do when I'm painting with acrylics on paper is add gesso to the entire paper. And I use a dry brush. This is called a wash brush. And I just spread the paint around, the gesso around with my dry brush. Okay, so I don't add any water whatsoever. And I just make sure that I have an equal layer around all of my paper. And this is going to make the paper behave more like painting on a canvas. So the water will, and the acrylic and the water will stay on top of the surface a little bit better instead of sinking into that paper like watercolors do. You can paint your background. I'm going to add some of my cadmium yellow with my gesso, and I'm going to use my gesso as the white, and my background doesn't have to be completely dry either, the gesso that's already on the paper. I'm using this because this is going to create even better of a layer for my paints to spread on the top. So you can use gesso as your underpainting, and that works great. So I just made it into a creamy yellow. I'm going to paint the whole entire paper, and I'm not going to worry about there not being any streaks or anything. I'm just going to have fun getting it down with some texture on my paper. So go ahead and add a creamy yellow layer to your entire paper. I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to blot up some of that yellow, and it's going to create a texture underneath where I've put the paper towel down. So I'm just starting right now to create that layer of texture that I want. And then you need to let that dry. If you want it to dry quick, you can use a blow dryer, and then I'll see you in the next step. So one of the really cool techniques that you can use with watercolor, and it's known to be used with watercolor, is adding salt to your paint, and it creates a really cool texture. Well, you can do the same thing with acrylics. You can add salt onto the top of your paint and it'll create a texture. I'm doing something a little different though. I am taking the salt and making some of the red with it, and then I'm taking the salt and adding it with my fingers onto my painting. I'm using a thicker salt, kosher salt, to do this, and I've added a little bit of black with my red just to get a different, dirtier color, you know. And I'm just going to take it like I did before, and I'm going to put the salt right onto my painting. This gives me more control of where I want that texture to go. So I can place it wherever I want, and then I have to let that dry, and then I'll remove the salt and it'll leave a really cool sand looking texture. The goal here is not to make it look exactly like sand, it's just going to give the impression of sand. So it's just a really fun, playful way to make texture and have fun in this painting. So I'm going to focus on putting it in the bottom half of my painting, mostly just there on the bottom because that's where the sand will be. Now I'm going to add my blue layers, and I've made a very light purple and a very light blue. I've made my light purple with my titanium white and my cerulean or my brilliant blue, whichever one you have, and a tiny bit of the red. And then I've made my light blue with just the white and my brilliant blue. And I'm going to dry brush it over this yellow, so that means there's no water on my brush, and it's going to skip over some of the areas and show that yellow underneath, which is what I want. It's going to create texture, it's also going to create depth, and it's going to show some of that yellow so that it brightens up my painting. So I'm going to switch between using the purple and the blue, and why I'm doing that is I'm creating just some more to look at in that distance. It's kind of a hazy distance and behind the bird, and it's just supposed to be kind of fun and playful. So you don't need to have it solid, you don't need to have it perfect. You can have brush strokes in it, you can have yellow showing, you can have a lot just going on that makes it so that it's not perfect. And that's what makes this one really fun and loose. When you get down to where you added the salt, your brush is going to pull off some of that salt that's already dried on there, and that's okay. And you can go over some of the salty area anyways. At this point, if your salt or your paint is dry where the salt is, you can just take your hand and remove all the salt. If it's not like mine is, then you can just go around it, leaving some of your yellow showing, which is really cool. And right now I've grabbed my brilliant blue to kind of have a darker blue down there on the bottom, so you can add some spots where you have just your brilliant blue not mixed or lightened at all. And I'm going around with my flat brush here, and I'm just going to kind of try to avoid some of those salt chunks. And notice how what it's doing right now, it's creating some more texture, which is exactly what I want. So now you want to take your brilliant blue, and up there on the right, the lower right, add some of that brilliant blue and pull up with your brush strokes, still a dry brush. And this is going to give the appearance that there is a separation there from the water and the sky in the background. But it's very subtle. And you just want to add some of that brilliant blue throughout the bottom part of your painting. You also want to have your light purple and your light blue within there too. You can get the reference photo to help you know where to place everything. You don't have to have it exactly like mine. You can make yours like how you want to. But if you want the reference photo to help you paint along, go ahead and click up there in the right hand corner. By clicking there, you are taken over to Patreon, where you can become a Createful Art member. Createful Art members help support the creation of these videos. They also get the reference photos to help paint along. You also get weekly art lessons that are going to help you learn the whys behind great art, the how-tos, and all those things that you need to know to become a great artist. So go ahead and click up there on the right-hand corner to get those art lessons and reference photos to help you paint along. You also get to vote for tutorials, and this tutorial was actually voted for by my Createful Art members. So it's just really cool. We have a lot of fun. I hope you join. So once you're done with that bottom part, you can now paint in the legs and the shadow of your bird. So right where I'm pointing, that's going to be where the shadow starts. And I'm just using my flat brush and my black, and I'm going to move it diagonal, and it's going to get skinnier and go right there at the bottom, okay? So it doesn't have to look perfect, like it's a perfect replica of the legs. So I want to skip just some areas. Maybe there's water there, and so the light is shining, that yellow is shining. Now I'm using my flat brush to get a nice vertical line. Notice that it's not perfect. This is just a loose painting. So you want to have that vertical line and about where I stopped it is in the middle of the paper. So I want to have a knob in the middle of the legs. So I'm actually, because I applied my paint just a little too thick, I'm going to take away some of my paint to get that nice look of a knob in the middle. Now we're to that exciting part where the bird starts to form. So I still have my flat brush, but I have white on my brush, and just follow my brush strokes. If you need to get the reference photo to help you, go ahead and do that. But I'm shaping my bird. Right there is the wing. So I have where I want my bird, I want it to go up and have that shoulder. So I'm curving the line around, and it's about the same distance from the bottom as it is to the top of that curved line. So I'm going to fill that in with white and then curve that line around to meet the wing right there by the leg. So now's the neck part, and I want to go down just a little bit to start my neck, and it's going to be a curved line, and any mistakes that I make on this part I can just add blue to move the neck around or whatever. So I'm using my flat brush to curve that line around and then have it come back and meet that line just right there. So I want it to curve in right there and then curve back out. The necks are skinny, so you don't want it to be too fat. And then where the S forms on the top, so it's an S curve, that's where the head starts to form, and I want that to come to a point on the end, so be thicker and then come to a point. Make the top or the wing part of the bird a little more wispy, and then try to curve that neck around a little bit more and make it a little bit fatter of a face, because I think the face is going to be a little too small. Now, anytime I make a mistake, I can just add blue to my brush and wipe away any of those lines. So it's no big deal. See, right now, my neck is huge. And now I'm going to fix it with my blue. See how easy that is? Just continue to shape your bird until it's the way that you want it. We can start adding dimension to it by adding other colors. So I've just put some of that blue, that darker blue on my brush. I have decided to add a little bit of white down there on the bottom. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. I'm using a dry brush technique again, and I just put a tiny bit of white on my brush and used my finger to move it around. And then I'm just going to dab it, so it's going to kind of look like sand, like there's missing parts of it, and I'm dabbing it onto the surface down there. And I'm doing this because I discovered after I had painted my white bird that I wanted to create harmony in the painting by adding some of the color of the bird down there into the sand. This is all just personal preference. It's something that you don't have to follow along if you don't want to. Grab my small detail brush, and I'm mixing my red and my yellow together to get an orange, and I'm going to work on the beak of my bird. So the beak is going to be not completely straight across, it's actually going to go down just a little bit and to a point on the end. So you don't want to have your beak curve. So I'm going to switch around to the right side of my painting here so that I can make sure I get it straight. And I'm going to pull down right there from the top and see how there's a little white showing like it's a little Y. That's what you want. And you want it to point down and be straight. Okay. With the same brush, I'm going to grab some of my black and I'm going to put in some detail that goes around that eye. Okay, so just follow along with what I'm doing. Pause the video if you need to. Look at your reference photo if that will help you. To create some more harmony, I'm going to add a little bit of that red to the leg there. Very end of my beak, I'm going to add some white to a point. Grab your gray because we need to create the appearance of feathers and some shadow areas. So I'm going to follow that S curve and just kind of watch what I'm doing here, how my brush strokes are just very choppy. So I'm getting like right there behind the neck. Now I need to add it where the neck meets the body right there. A little bit of the brilliant blue right there behind the neck too. That'll create some harmony in this artwork. So anytime you want to just pause the video and follow along, or you can just be as loose as what I'm going to be and just play around and move paint around. This is the dimension part of the painting, so we're going to be adding in the darker colors and then another layer of white over the top so that that white really pops. Brush strokes going in the direction of where the feathers are going to be lying on the bird help the bird, or help those look like feathers, okay? So that's important to understand because you want to kind of copy the texture of the bird so that it looks like it's supposed to, but this isn't a realistic painting, so you don't have to make it look perfect. So I'm going in between my gray and my blue to get some dimension in this bird and these feathers. Now, your painting doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You can play at this point. This is also the details that make up our personal preferences, and so you'll see a lot of things that I'm doing that don't have to be done. They're just what I want to do. And then other things that you're like, okay, that needs to be done so that the bird looks right. Putting a little yellow onto your bird that's the same color as the background is really gonna pull this painting together and create a very harmonious, soft painting. This painting is a very calm painting, so it's meant to be that way, and pulling these colors together just gives you the sense of peace and calmness that I wanted to translate into this art piece. I'm going to create a little bit more dimension over here. At the back of the bird, or under the wing of this bird, there is usually black. If you see them flying above you, you'll see the black tips. I'm just going to give the look that there's possibly some black tips back here. And I'm doing this with my round brush. And look at how it separates those wings down there so they really actually get some form in there. Last things I'm going to do is add a little bit of dimension over here in the face, and then the red dot as the eye. Right in the middle of the red dot, you want to add a little bit of black. When it's important to step away from your painting and look back and see if there's anything you need to add, any details you want to add, any colors you want to add. This is all about personal preferences and making this bird your own painting, so something unique to you. Things that I decided that I wanted to add was a little bit more pink in there, and so I had that pink at the very beginning I showed you, and I'm going to add a little bit of that throughout my painting, and that's just something that is a personal preference, and you don't have to follow this step at all. That I like to do is add metallic touches into my artwork. So I've grabbed my metallic silver and I'm adding that in a few places. And so when the light's going to touch it, in just certain lights, it's going to be iridescent, and I just think that's cool. So I add that to almost all of my artwork. Once you're done and it's dry, you can peel off your tape and it'll leave that really pretty white outline around your artwork. Just pull away from your painting. Make sure that you go slow so it doesn't pull off any of the paper. Strangely, this step is just really satisfying for me. That nice crisp line, it just makes me happy. So I'm gonna let you watch it as well. This is so wonderful. Time to sign your work, and I just like to sign it down there in the bottom with one of the colors that's there. So it's not too distracting, but you can notice it. Work, you are done. I am so proud of you for finishing this painting with me. I hope you had a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it so that you're notified whenever I make a new video. If you haven't already, sign up for my weekly art lessons. They're going to help you become a better artist by teaching you all the whys behind great art and also new and different techniques that you can try. You also get the reference photos to help you paint along. Thank you so much for watching. There are some more fun art tutorials for you to watch, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!